Welcome, welcome everyone. We're just giving it a couple of seconds for the last few people that are coming in from the waiting room to join us. And then we will get started. All right, I think that we're all here. Welcome everyone to our long anticipated webinar entitled Improve Your Child Outcomes Data, Introducing the Child Outcomes Summary Knowledge Check, the COS KC. My name is Mary Lee Porterfield. I'm with the DaSy Center, and I'm joined by my colleagues Lauren Barton, Robin Rooney, and Kathy Hebler, all of whom you will hear from shortly. We are delighted you are here. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the intended outcomes for this session. By the end of this session, we hope that you will know and understand the purpose and features of the COS KC. You'll know about the data that's available through reports from the system. You'll learn about how states have incorporated the COS KC into their larger systems for improving data quality. And you will know where to go for more information and how to sign up to use the COS KC in your own state. Next slide. We're going to do that through introducing you to the COS KC system, so you'll know what it is. We're going to review example data that's available through the COS KC reports. We're going to hear implementation stories from the early adopter states, and we'll go over the links that you need in order to learn more information and sign up so that you can use the COS KC yourselves. Before we get started, we have a couple of polls for you. If you go to the next slide. First, we would like to know who's in the room. So if you will, we'll pop up a poll, and if you'll let us know who you are so that we can just get a sense of the different perspectives and roles that are represented. And we expected that we would have a lot of Part C and 619 coordinators, state staff, national staff, TA providers. Great. I think you can go ahead and share the results. Oh, good. So it looks like we have a really nice mix of folks, and we're excited to be able to share this with all of you. And if you can go to the next slide now, we have one more poll, and then we'll really get into the content. The next slide is just about to let us know, and we're going to launch another poll to let us know your familiarity with the COS KC. So if you're just here to learn about it sort of for the first time, if you have a little bit of information about it, if you're somewhat familiar and you've just been watching for the rollout and the updates, or maybe you've worked with us before on some of the testing or the early rollout and you're really familiar with it. So whatever your level is, we'd love to see that. And while we're here, I'll let you know that you're welcome to interact with us throughout this webinar via the chat feature. You can leave your comments or questions. We'll be monitoring that chat throughout. And we will also have a Q&A session towards the end so that you'll have several opportunities to ask us questions. And we look forward to talking with you more about the COS KC and helping you figure out how to use it in your system. So with that, I will end the poll and turn it over to Lauren to talk to us a little bit about child outcomes. Lauren, take it away.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And I also want to let you know that under the 3 dots and the more, there is closed captioning available if you have not found that and would find it helpful. It looks like we have a great variety of people here today, and we're thrilled to have you. As we think about the COS KC, we wanted to just remind everybody that the whole focus of this is to produce quality child outcomes data. And I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the 3 child outcomes that are used nationally to measure and to report for federal reporting. Next slide. Data quality can be a top concern with our child outcomes data. And so we really want to support having high quality data so that we can know that our programs are making a difference and really be confident that the data we're using to make program improvement decisions is meaningful and accurate data. This data shows up in high visibility reports, and especially for Part C is used in determinations by OSEP. So data quality can be that top concern. It also helps us know that we can really tell a meaningful story about the kids we're serving and how they change from entry and exit using all the information we know about those children. Next slide, please. So for those of you who like visual pictures of what's going on with all this, this is a visual picture of that. So it takes a lot of different pieces and parts to have a high quality child outcome summary process. Many of you are involved in different aspects of these supports, from creating strong professional development systems, establishing guidance or policies, creating a culture of data use, and then providing feedback to people, whether it's through monitoring or other ways. And as they use the data, to help them think about whether the data makes sense and they're using it. All these things are important, you can advance, to see the infrastructure that can support quality child outcome summary process implementation. They're also important to establish strong practitioner knowledge of all the pieces and parts that you need to get high quality data. If you advance it, please, you can see that those taken together will support quality implementation, what actually happens when they're actually in a meeting and coming up with those ratings. And then advance, please. This taken together will produce quality data that's useful for federal reporting and for program improvement. The COS KC that we're talking about today doesn't address all of these things. It focuses on just the one circled part of practitioner knowledge. So as we talk about this new resource that's available, we're not saying that it's going to cause everything in the system to change, but it's one important tool that can help you understand what's going on in your system and help improve the quality of that data. Advance the slide. Oh, go back one. The COS KC is a way for states and local programs to know whether practitioners have the knowledge that they need to participate effectively in the COS process. So it doesn't tell us that they are doing it effectively, but it tells us, do they have that core knowledge that's necessary to be able to do it effectively? It is practically a practical format that is easy to use. So it's free, it's open book, it's just 30 multiple choice questions, and it's available online. It focuses on what you need to know in order to have the knowledge for the COS process, and it generally takes about 45 minutes to an hour. It depends how long you think about each of the questions and so on. There's the online addresses there, and we do want to just underscore that while we encourage people to use whatever resources are helpful for them during the assessment items themselves should not be shared. We need to keep those sacred so that we can continue to use the assessment for years to come. Next slide. The COS KC has been developed thoughtfully, and we've worked very closely with many of you across the years to check to make sure that it is going to provide valid information. You want to advance the slide. We want to thank especially our states who have participated in a field test of this most recent set of questions. And we used real data from early intervention and early childhood special education practitioners to determine whether items that might be put into it are strong, whether they look at how training and experience and knowledge that those people have is related to their performance on the assessment, and found positive results in all those areas. We also got feedback from users about the relevance and fusions that were created in the questions, and really feel good about the questions that are in place. Next slide. So a few more of the nuts and bolts. You can see on the left is a picture of the login screen for the assessment. We have, once you get inside, 6 versions that have 30 items each. There's 3 versions for birth to 3 and 3 versions for 3 to 5. The core knowledge on both of them is the same, but the examples that are referenced reflect kids in the age group that those practitioners work with. The assessment itself is pass-fail, And for individuals who pass, they will receive a certificate that they can print out and use as needed. They can, if they do not pass the first time, they have the option to retake the assessment. We instituted at least a 24-hour waiting period to encourage people to reference resources and brush up on topic areas that might be challenging for them. And then when they go back to retake it, they'll get a different version of the form. Next slide. So this shows the content areas that are covered within the COS KC. Each assessment is a smattering of things across these kinds of topics. All of these are topics that are covered in the national COS process module for professional development that's out there, and reflect many of the kinds of resources and topics that states are already implementing in their professional development and supporting practitioners in building understanding. We feel that all these areas are things that are important to have knowledge about in order to implement the COS process well. Next slide. This is just an example of a question. All the questions are multiple choice, but as you can see here, this focuses on assigning a rating of 6 rather than 7. And in the answer choices, people have to identify that they can use the criteria of what it means to be a 6 versus a 7 in order to answer the question effectively. And then some of the decoys are designed so that they address kind of myths or misconceptions that people sometimes have, so that they're realistic things people might choose, but that are still wrong answers. And so in this case, like one of the decoys is about whether or not the rating that you give on the child outcome summary process determines eligibility for services. I'll give you just a second to look that over. And then the next slide. We do also want to underscore that the assessment is open book. Users are encouraged to use resources during the assessment. We didn't design it to be full of trick questions or to trip people up so that a lot of people do not pass. Instead, we wanted to improve the ability of people to demonstrate that they have the knowledge that they need to do this process. So shown here is a quick reference guide that is available to people during the assessment. It's also just posted on the web page with many other PD materials. It highlights things like having handy the decision tree and the breadth of the 3 child outcomes graphic, because then as you get asked questions that help you discriminate between the outcomes or discriminate between the ratings, referencing those things is helpful. And those realistically are the kinds of resources you might have with you during a meeting, or you might reference when you're actually making these decisions. So we want people to feel comfortable using those resources as needed throughout the assessment.
Okay, let's talk about the benefits of using the COS KC. And I did see a little chat in the chat box about whether or not we're talking about both Part C and 619 processes. There you go. Yeah, Mary Lee's got it in there. We do have a couple of versions for Part C and a couple of versions for 619. So when we're thinking about the benefits for individual practitioners, well, for me as an individual practitioner, I would want to know whether I have the knowledge I need to participate effectively in the COS process as a COS team member. I would sign up, I would review the resources, especially that quick reference guide, take the assessment, and then if I didn't pass it, that would tell me that I need to do a deeper dive into the professional development resources that are available to me to improve my knowledge of the COS process. Next slide. And so how about as a state, what are the benefits of using the COS KC process? Well, especially if I have concerns about data quality and child outcomes, I am going to want to know, do our practitioners have the knowledge they need to produce accurate COS ratings? Because that's how we're going to get to data quality. And then I would run these reports. So here's an example of one of the reports we get from the COS KC. This one is going to tell me the passing rate for the COS KC by program. So you see the programs over on the left. And then we have columns for the number and percent of practitioners who are in progress, completed and did not pass, and completed and passed. So I would be able to look at that and know which programs maybe I would need to focus some PD resources on. Now, this is just one of the reports. There's other ones that show also completion and passing rates by background and training characteristics, such as by professional role, and also by types of COS PD that practitioners have experienced. And then there's also a report that shows you individuals and the passing rate for individuals. So you can do follow-up, or so the local programs can do follow-up if folks got stuck in progress or have only passed one, did not pass the first time and need to try again to pass. Some of that user management will be using those reports. And we're going to hear about that from actual states. So Rachel, let's go to the next slide and see who we've got. Thank you to our early adopters. You have really been in there with us, finding bugs and little kinks, and we've been working them out as we go. And so we really are excited to have you with us today and want to say thank you for all your help. So the next slide is going to show who we've got. Hawaii Part C, Wisconsin Part B619, Alaska Part C, and Alabama Part C. Thank you so much for being with us today. And Kathy Kubo, I'm going to turn it over to you. And that's the next slide.
Hi. Okay, so Hawaii was looking for a way to measure fidelity for providers when they were completing the cost process. One of our SF outcomes is that EI providers will implement the cost process with fidelity. We were happy to be selected as an early adopter for the COS KC. We began working with the TAs in early December to iron out the details of what our responsibility would be and complete our big picture plan. Currently, all new hires in early intervention are required to complete the COS online modules as part of their orientation. We have not determined how the COS KC will be rolled into this process once this phase has been completed. So for our rollout, we rolled it out in phases. We started with administration, and those are lead agencies who will be directly supporting our programs. And we also have team leaders who are supporting individual programs. So our state lead agencies have access to all of the data. Our team leaders have access to the programs that they support. That started in December. Then our next phase was to roll it out to the program managers. We have 18 programs statewide. They are the local administrators just for their program. We began having the program managers complete the COS KC in February. The final step was the staff. We then rolled it out to all direct service providers in all programs statewide. This started at the end of March. Program managers forwarded them the instructions on registering and completing. One of the first questions that one of the program managers asked if there was any compensation for the time that the staff would spend completing the COS KC. So that was taken to our core team, and they decided that each provider could bill for 1 hour, one time. So based on what it seemed feasible that it would take to finish this, they can bill one time. If they don't complete it in that first time, they still need to do it a second time, but they can't bill again. So the deadline for all of our programs to program staff to complete is April 30th. So kind of based loosely on the COS KC, I came up with a short Google questionnaire to see if I could get feedback from them as early adopters if there was any feedback that we could share with our TAs. So can I just go ahead and share my screen? Don't, there we go. Okay, can you see that pie chart? Okay, so it's got just a few questions. So first question I asked was how long it was taking them to complete the process. And so 52% of the people, so a little bit more than half of them, are saying it took them between half an hour and 45 minutes. And it was just one person that completed this that said it took more than an hour. So we're thinking that person had to probably repeat it. We asked them about how the website was for navigation, and everyone seems to think that it's very easy to navigate and they didn't have a problem with that. I asked regarding the reference materials. So you can see that a majority of people felt that the reference materials were very helpful. Only 2 people said, oh, they didn't need it. Were there any areas you can recall that you struggled in to see? So most of the people here were saying that it was with the age anchoring. And I know I've gotten that feedback before from programs that they do struggle with that. So I usually try to give them TA on that. The only problem with this question is I neglected to add no. I knew all of the sections and I didn't struggle with anything. And I'm sure there's people that had that, but I neglected to add that as an option. And finally, it was just an open-ended question on if there's anything they'd like to share about the process. I thought I was pretty clear that I was talking about the COS knowledge chat, but some of the responses, like when they say the COS KC is not user-friendly, yeah, I think they mean the COS because we don't explain the COS KC to families. So I think they were referencing just the COS itself. So that was all the responses I got so far. And we had 119 providers registered for it. 95 have passed. There's several still in process. So they do have until the end of the month. So that was all I had to share on that. So our next, we're going to be looking at the data for program improvement. So looking at both assessment and feedback data and taking it to my work group to see how we can use this data in our SEP process. So our next steps, we're wanting to, the next piece is the COS TC, which is the COS team collaboration. We did use the COS TC for observation of the COS process, but we made the mistake of paring it down to what we thought was the basic necessary components because it was kind of long. But after several months of observations, it was determined that we stripped it down too far because everybody was coming up as completing the process with fidelity. And we didn't think that was an accurate assessment. So we went back to the drawing board. It's kind of been reverted back to its original format. We did leave out a few pieces because we felt that those were pieces that we couldn't really observe and the observers wouldn't really have access to the child's records. So just those few pieces were taken out. We have not yet implemented it. We're working on a training piece for our observers to ensure that everyone is on the same page when they're observing. And so the observations right now, we're wanting to observe any providers who may need extra assistance, as well as providers who we think are doing well, and to see how they're doing and to share information with across the board with all of our providers. That's all I have. If you have any
That's
questions.
great, Kathy. We're gonna hold questions till the end, but I do
Okay.
think you've got some questions in the chat, so we'll come back to that. Kathy, thank you so much for sharing how things are going in Hawaii, and I love your background. I love
Thank
that.
you.
But it is me. All righty, who's next? How about the next slide? And that is Wisconsin 619, Michelle Agoric. Thank you for joining us today. Tell us your story.
Okay, I am Michelle Ogoric. I'm the statewide early childhood special ed coordinator in Wisconsin. I work in conjunction with the 619 coordinator, and we are really excited to do the COS KC. I'm going to go back a little bit so you can kind of see the context in which this fits. So we actually we're trying to find a way to use our child outcome data. LEAs put a lot of time and resources into doing child outcomes, and we in Wisconsin really didn't have a way for them to really utilize their data for program improvement. So we actually were very lucky. DaSy a few years ago had a cohort on how to use child outcome data, how your state can put that together. We were part of it. We developed a couple training packages. We have an application in which our child outcomes is housed. We really were looking at data quality and program improvement. We developed some reports that looked at data quality, some outliers with relation to ratings and things like that. And then for program improvement, we really did some reports that dealt with progress categories. So I happened to be at a conference and I saw Robin and Lauren, and they were talking about the COS KC. And one thing is, we really want, if people are going to use our data, we want our data to be accurate. So this seemed like a tool that was just a really nice complement for what we were doing. So we became part of the initial pilot where you're figuring out what questions were going to be part of the actual assessment. And then we really enjoyed that. So then we became part of this pilot. And what we did is we took a little different approach. We started at the state level. So at the state level, we have what are called TA providers, and the TA providers do training and technical assistance across the state. So we had all of our TA providers take the knowledge check. For two reasons. One, we want to make sure everybody had foundational skills, and we felt really confident everybody did. And guess what? Everybody did do well on the COS KC, so we feel confident in that. But then secondly, if they're going to be supporting people and they're going to be promoting the tool, we felt that they needed to actually go through the tool and be able to, know what the tool was about. So we did it at the state level, and now we're moving down to the LEAs. So what we're doing is on May 5th, which is coming quite quickly, we invited our large LEAs. So we invited, I think it was our top 30 or 40 districts that had the highest number of students. The reason we chose them is because we are doing an event with them on May 5th where we're rolling out all of our materials on how to use your data and all of our reports that can be run, and we're embedding the COS KC right in that. So we chose the large districts so that they would be able to, have a lot of data to manipulate. So on May 5th, we're going to have an event, and we invited the large districts, and we invited districts that had what's called a program support teacher. So this is somebody that does training and technical assistance in their district, because we thought they were our hook to be able to get into the districts and have the connection with the providers. We did ask every single person that's coming. I believe we have 30 districts so far, if I'm correct. Everybody that's coming, that they did need to take the COS KC knowledge check themselves. And again, kind of an unintentional consequence, we want to make sure that everybody that is working and doing training and technical assistance for our larger districts, the districts that have significant impact on our data, that they all have that foundational level. So we'll see when on May 5th, we'll see how that happens. But we are having the event, and then what's going to happen at that event is part of it'll be the COS KC, and we're going to try to, for lack of a better words, sell it to them. As programs and districts have a lot on their plate, but we're really looking from the avenue that if you really want to use your data, you need to ensure that your data is accurate. And this is one tool that can help, that your providers will have the foundational skills to be able to do accurate ratings. we are also at that event going to sell to the people that are there that this would be a great tool to use with your providers, and a couple different things, the avenues that we're trying to go through that. Everybody here is going to be a PD provider. So we're saying that this tool will allow you to differentiate a little bit with your professional learning. So, you know, we know that resources are tight, at least in Wisconsin they are. Resources are tight. And, you know, if people have the knowledge and the skills to do child outcomes, do we want to make them sit through a training every single year? Okay, so what we're thinking of is we might be able to use this tool for differentiation, and that people that might need additional training, we can provide that to them. People that have foundational knowledge, they would be able to you know, maybe explore different avenues or deeper concepts in child outcomes. And then the other thing too is we thought that this would be a great tool for districts that as new staff come on board, that they would be able to use this tool to be able to have them go through whatever variety of training they're going to do, or do some of the online modules. We're promoting the process modules. And then this would be a tool for them to be able to see that their staff have the foundational knowledge. One kind of unintended consequence is we really were focused on the larger districts for this particular event and for this rollout. But we've had some directors of smaller districts say, this would be a really nice tool for me because I have the opportunities for the teachers to go to certain training in that, but I don't have TA providers or program support teachers that can ensure or do additional training. So if I see that they don't have the foundational knowledge, we can reach out to our grant, which does do this type of training. So the goal is at that event, people that are interested in doing this with their particular LEAs or their school districts, what they will do is we will be able to get them all set up. We are going to leave a little bit, because it is voluntary, we're going to leave a little bit of open-endedness in that, you know, districts might choose to do it in different ways, which is totally acceptable. And then we will next year support them. We'll provide whatever technical assistance and support that they need next year in order to make this process become kind of established and part of their daily work in their district. So we're excited. All I can say is we have great ideas of what's going to happen. We'll see on May 5th. We'll share with people how it happens after that. But that's what Wisconsin's doing.
Wow, May 5th, that's going to be quite a day. I can't wait to hear about it. You're going to do a lot of good stuff on that day. Thank you, Michelle. Rachel, let's go to the next slide, and we're going to hear from Susan Kessler of Alaska, Part C. Welcome, Susan. Thank you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for including me today. I'm Susan Kessler. I'm the unit manager and the data manager for the Part C system in Alaska. And I think Alaska kind of started with the knowledge check a couple iterations ago before my time with the state. But we've been implementing the COS knowledge check over the past few months. We're kind of on a very similar track with Hawaii. So we are focusing on social emotional outcomes for our SIP, and we're definitely interested in our data quality. So I would say that was our biggest motivator, is starting to have an understanding of some of our data quality for the SIP. We also have 15 regional programs in our state, and those were each set up within the COS KC system, so they have their own account, and we at the lead agency have access to all of their data as well, and have been really helping them implement it. We've been talking with our state providers during the fall about becoming an early adopter state, and we gave them a final reminder in December, and then we rolled out logins in January. Worked through a few kinks with the login process that Robin and the team were great in helping us through. And providers started taking the knowledge check at the end of January. We have focused on the target group of providers who have already taken the COS process online modules. And so that was actually, I was surprised that not everybody in the state had done that. So that was new to me. And we're actually just finished integrating those COS process modules into our state learning management system. So one piece of advice I have for other states is don't do that at the same time. Don't roll out 2 COS systems at the same time, because your programs will be very confused. But we've got them both running now, and we have about 75% of our state who have completed the online process modules have finished the knowledge check. So we're winding down. One of the things that we also decided to do, I think similar to Hawaii maybe, is we're having providers, once they finish the COS process online modules, we're pointing them directly to the COS knowledge check to take the knowledge check test as a kind of a follow-up. So some interesting data we've seen. One thing, I've just been looking around in our data a little bit, and one thing that's pretty interesting is that our new graduates of the COS process modules do really well on the knowledge check. The providers that who are struggling the most, from what I can see, have kind of been doing COS for a long time, and they've maybe gotten, so they do it in their own way within their own program, and gotten into certain habits and ways of doing things, who are maybe struggling a little bit more. So they also maybe didn't study because they thought, well, I've got this, I've been doing COS forever. So some of them have had to go back and realize that maybe they do need to brush up a little, which I think is a positive in that it's just raising their own self-awareness, especially if they're a supervisor. It's especially important. We did get feedback from several of our local programs. So some of that it was actually quite varied. I shared with Robin and the team, 2 of our biggest programs had kind of opposite reactions to it. I think some of the programs felt like the questions were a little hard to read or get through. So we had one provider who didn't self-identify as a second English as a second language, but maybe could have, and she struggled a little more. I think one of the things that's come up, and I know it's been a long time topic of conversation around this, is wishing they had some way of having more feedback on which areas they need to study more. And so that's been something we've been talking about, how a local program provider can kind of debrief that with someone so that they can focus their training on particular areas that they kind of struggled with. So yeah, I think those are our main lessons. Overall, I'm still analyzing the data, but I think lots of good things that we've learned from it.
Alrighty, thank you, Susan. Already got lessons that we're learning from putting it out there. And we do have Alabama, I think, Part C to talk to us today. Shannon Foster was going to be on the phone. Shannon, are you there? If not, I'll just go ahead and let you know that in Alabama, it's a requirement for practitioners to take the COS KC. And so they put in some guidance that says if you don't pass the COS KC after you take it twice, then go to that COS process module online and take the module and then try it again. And Alabama's been working really hard to build the COS module and the COS KC into new higher orientation, which I've heard a couple of you all say also. So those are our early adopters. Thank you again. We wouldn't be here without you. And there may be some questions for you. So let's go to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Hepler, who's going to manage the questions and finish up our webinar today. Thank you again, everybody.
Everyone, thanks for joining us. And I just want to echo Robin's thank you to our early adopters. We have learned so much from you. So thank you very much for coming along with us on this journey. For some of us, we know it's been a long journey. Questions either about the COS KC, and someone can read the chat. Let's see what we've got going on.
Right.
Or you can come off mute and ask a question, or you can put your question in the chat. And we do have a chat question.
Yeah, we have.
Catherine, does this coincide with the ECTA COS module? I'm assuming you're referring to the COS module that we've all been talking about. It is it's aligned, so they cover the same content, and I think that's what you've heard our state presenters say, which is why if people work their way through the module, they get the content. They are then very well prepared to take the COS KC because presumably they've just learned the content that they're about to be assessed on. You know?
Okay,
So there's strong alignment.
Okay, so this is Catherine, and I wasn't on at the very beginning, so that's really good to know, because we took in New Mexico, we took those modules and we put them on our own platform with permission from the ECTA Center that we don't change anything, because in that way we could take the data on who's actually taking the training. Is that something that everyone else has done? Because if you just go to the COS modules on the ECTA Center, then we don't have a way of knowing who took the test. So, or who took the modules, I guess. And then the COS KC, that's the assessment to see what everyone has learned from it.
Yeah, that
Okay.
is the way it works. I know there are a number of states that have taken the module and incorporated it into their learning management system. I don't think they all have. And that is one of the shortcomings of the module, that you can't tell, the state can't tell who's taken it. There is a question in the registration about whether individuals have taken the module or not.
Okay.
So when they register for the COS KC, so the state will be able to actually look at, if people answer that question and answer it accurately, then the state will be able to look at how their pass-fail rates by whether or not they took the module or completed the module.
Well, thank you. I mean, because that's great data. Yes, I like it. Thanks.
Yeah, and Susan is saying that Alaska has done this and links to the COS KC at the end of the module. Yeah, so if you have a learning management system, I think you can set it up to do that. For states that are requiring LEAs to take the COS KC, how are they requiring it?
That's a good question for our folks in Alabama Part C, but I don't know that Shannon was able to get on the
No, it's 619 that they're asking. So Michelle has actually just answered it, that they're not requiring it.
So Wisconsin is anybody out there who is thinking of requiring it and could speak to how you are going to require it?
and we can get some information from Shannon and follow up and send it out.
Yeah. And Susan added that the pass rate in Alaska has been around 75% for first time. So other questions or comments? Okay, well, if not,
I
let's
have
go
a
to-
question.
sure, go ahead.
If you don't mind. So, and I remember when this was coming out and you got, I guess you all were asking for state volunteers, and we tried to do this. So is this the COS KC, is that in pilot programs only, or is that available for everyone right now?
This is it. This is the launch. It is now available for everyone.
Yay! Okay, good. Thank you.
So and that's part of why we are here. So we want to be real clear with that message. If you are out there and you are a state and you are interested, then yeah, we definitely we want you to reach out to us. And the rollout involves, I mean, the first step in the rollout is working with DaSy to get your local programs entered in. And there's some prep work. There's some technical prep work, but there's also, I think, as you've heard our early adopters talk, there's some there's some state decisions about how you're going to do this, and so we can help you with the process of thinking, what's your rollout going to look like if you are ready to roll out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some more chat questions here. Is there a link where we can find it? That is great. The it, I'm assuming, is that there's two things. There's our website. There's a section of the DaSy website that is now up and functional, and that is devoted to the COS KC. That includes a link to the assessment, so providers could go there. Any of you could go there and work your way through the COS KC. But Rachel just put it in the chat if any of you want to open it. We want to keep reiterating, we would encourage you not to send your providers to the website until you've got everything laid out as far as how, because if they go early before you've entered your program, and if anybody, you could try, if you have not entered local programs, what's going to happen is you are going to pick your state, Alabama Part C. Now, I won't pick that one because it actually has local New York Part C, and then they go to local program. There will be nothing, because that's the part that your state has to do, because we don't know what your local program structure is. And so here's what you do. If you're interested in using it now, if you want to think about it next year, you can reach out to your DaSy liaison, your ECTA contact, or go to the link. This is the DaSy link for TA. Just go there. We'll reach out to you. We'll set up a time and we will walk you through the enrollment process. So that's what happens next. This is the general DaSy link for requesting TA. There's nothing special about it. Or if you can't remember or the slide goes down, just go to the DaSy website and go to where you request TA, or reach out to your DaSy liaison or ECTA contact. So that's, and here it is. This is the website. Actually, this is a screenshot of what the website looked like last week. We're still working a little bit on it. We've got the layout good. There are a few documents that have not been loaded, so bear with us. Stay tuned. Within a couple days or so, we'll have it, all the information completely there. But we are very excited to be able to finally be here and have this available to all of you. Any other, did I miss anything in the chat? Thank you, Michelle, for saying the text setup was easy. Suzanne has a question about, has anyone incentivized the taking of the test in some way?
Right, like what's in it for me if I take this test? Like, you get a free book, or has, you know, a ticket to the conference or something like that.
Free registration at IDIO, how's that?
Oh,
Which has no cost. I don't know, any of the states want to speak to, did you need incentives, or what did you offer as incentives?
We're just paying our providers 1 hour of their rate to complete it, because it is a requirement for us.
In Wisconsin, we're not offering any incentive. We are suggesting to the LEAs that they may want to provide some incentive for their teachers, or additional time to take it maybe during the school day or something like that.
I was just thinking about when you were speaking about bundling kind of with the module, that some states are giving the credits for the continuing education as bundled with that, with their when it's in their LMS, then they can get a certificate. So maybe it could be part of that process.
So that's totally interesting, because we did put, this is Catherine. So we did put the modules just for learning about the COS process and the right way to complete it and look at it and include people instead of everybody doing a single thing, really taking and discussing. And that's what we wanted, is the learning piece. But what happened when we put it in our learning management system, which is Canvas, is that nothing would read. We have access to the videos, but we are also trying to make the modules friendly for people that might have dyslexia or something like that, or just need that on, where it's read out loud. I guess we're doing that for everybody, for parents, for practitioners, for everyone, making it accessible. And so what we ended up having to do is have our coaches, they read the word piece that wasn't part of the videos, if that makes sense. So it didn't really talk to the Canvas well. Is there suggestions?
Let me follow up with you offline, but just for everyone generally. And this, sorry, it's a little off topic, but we did identify that very recently, actually, as an issue with the module in general, not just the module that connected with an LMS. So it may be also with the LMS, but we're about to roll as of today. Hopefully, we'll have updated the module to be more compatible with the screen reader, which it was, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So I will be sending new software out to everyone that's that I've been in contact with about their module element.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So can I ask one question too, and it's not about the system, but if I was going to, because in New Mexico, we created a new, like we have the public education department, and now I guess 3 years ago, we have the early care and early education care department. So they handle the birth to 5, yet at public education department, our 3 to 5 year olds are still at the public education because we have them in our LEAs. If I were to broach this with the other department, just going to the DaSy site and looking at it together, and would that be the best starting point, and then contacting you all?
Catherine, I would, and other members of the teams, I think what I would suggest is you personally go to the website and you go through it, but your people better than we do. And so then, but we would be happy to walk with you and your other team members or other agencies, and that applies to all of you. I mean, if there are other entities, other people that you need to convince that this is a good idea or to get on board, we're happy to help you figure out what's the most meaningful strategy for how to get everybody on board.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we've probably come to the end here. I want to put in a pitch for the evaluation, which you will be getting an email on very soon. Please, we use the evaluation results. Please, it's short. Do take a few minutes to fill it out when you get it. And we hope to hear from many of you in the coming weeks. And we look forward to working with you as you roll this out in your states. So thank you all for joining us today.